Hello, how you doing? Welcome back to Light Stand Entertainment. This is Deviant D. How you doing? Today we're going to do a review of the latest film from Ghost House Productions, directed by Fede Alvarez, Don't Breathe. I know this review is a few weeks late, came out at the end of August, but sue me, I just started this channel, thought I'd talk about a movie I saw recently, and here you go. Long and short of it, great movie. If you don't know much about the director, this is only his second feature film. His first film was the Evil Dead remake, made once again by Ghost House Productions, came out a few years back. If you remember, I'm sure most of you know, film geeks know, it was a huge hit, made a lot of money, and more importantly, the horror community kind of dug it as a remake of a classic horror film. Usually those don't work out too well. I mean, the Friday the 13th remake, terrible. Nightmare on Elm Street remake, I mean, you can list just so many. So, horror remakes, I mean, 1 out of every 10 probably works. But the Evil Dead remake, for all intents and purposes, did very well and didn't destroy any mythology, you know. It did very well. One of the smartest things I think they did with that film was take it in a new direction and not try to recapture the magic of the character of Ash by casting somebody else to play that character. They were smart enough to realize that would be just a dumb fucking thing to do. Bruce Campbell is Ash, and to see anybody else even try, to play him, it would just be wrong. And wisely, they didn't do that. They took it in a different direction. I think it worked, and many did too. So his second film with the same company, the director, Fede Alvarez, was Don't Breathe. I really dug this movie. It's an original idea. Instead of just remaking another horror movie for his second film, he branched out and did an original story. And once again, this film is doing very well. When I looked at the budget, I think the budget was just under $10 million. The last time I checked, it made about 108. It's up to 108 million. So it's a huge hit. It's not making Captain America Civil War money, but this movie didn't take $250 million to produce. It's relatively small budget, and that's what I love about horror movies, is you can make something with quality without a lot of money. You have to rely on the talent behind the camera and in front of the camera. Sorry about this. I don't have anything fancy to look, at my notes with. I don't write all this stuff down, obviously. You could probably pick that up. But I do write a few things down, so if I look down here, don't think that there's something really interesting down here that you're all missing out on. It's just a notebook. It's nothing fancy. One thing I loved about Don't Breathe from a director's standpoint, when I talk about films, and you'll see this in the future, I usually talk about the directing and the writing before I start talking about the acting, and I'm not saying that I feel one is more important than the other. It's just the aspect of filmmaking I gravitate to and tend to, pay more attention to. So that's why I do it like that. That's why I'm talking about the director first before anything. I've really dug the way he directed this film, just because in many ways it was a departure of what he did with The Evil Dead, which, let's be honest, relies heavily on gore, kill sequences, stuff like that. Don't Breathe is a complete 180 about that. There's very little gore in this film at all. Not to say there isn't some kill sequences, and the kill sequences are pretty sweet, but the film isn't over-relying on those aspects to tell the story, so to speak. It's more about building tension, creating suspense. The director is definitely channeling his inner Hitchcock on this. For those of you that don't know the film, I won't give too many spoilers, but the movie has been out for a while, so I'll say a little bit, but if there's any spoiler, I'll warn you. Quick summarization of the plot is these 3 hood rats in Detroit basically get some intel from one of the characters' parents that there's this old blind guy that lives in this neighborhood in Detroit. He's the last guy that lives in the neighborhood, and basically he's sitting on a buttload of cash that he just got from a settlement that feeds into the plot later. Anyway, So basically, they think it's an easy score. Some old blind guy living in a neighborhood of Detroit that's, dilapidated. It's really sad, but very far away from its former glory days of Detroit. This movie shows it. It really does. One of the best things about it is the opening shot. It's one of those really wide angle shots over what is Detroit. And there's just this road in the center, and you can see somebody walking, and it looks like they're dragging something, but it's really far out, and we get a very slow zoom in. I'm talking slow. It's like you think a slow zoom in. No, this thing takes its time. It really makes you look at the entire shot, how it's, the whole shot's composed. And in the background, you can see, parts of thriving Detroit. You see, large buildings, lights, whatnot. And as it gets closer, you can't help but look at more of the surroundings of this person walking down the road, but you get to see the neighborhood, and it's dilapidated, like I said. I know I said that before, but that's pretty much the best way I can describe it. I mean, do a Google search for the slums of Detroit. That's what it looks like. And very slow zoom in, just sets the mood. As the film progresses, the setting was very important. I think it was a brilliant choice for the writer or whoever came up with it to set this film in Detroit. It honestly kind of reminded me of the setting of Haddonfield, Illinois, for the Halloween series. The great thing about that is the story takes place in suburbia, Anytown, USA, suburbia, for Halloween, and you're just not safe there. Even though you're around people, you're not off in, an abandoned campground or an abandoned mansion in the middle of the woods somewhere. You're in suburbia. You should be okay. You should be able to call the cops if anything's wrong, and they'll be right there. Yet it kind of flips it, even though you're in suburbia where it's, safe. John Carpenter flipped it where it's like you're not even safe at home, let alone being safe out in the middle of the wilderness. Of course you're not safe there, but you always cling to that fact that once I get home, I'm safe, and John Carpenter took that away. Same thing with Don't Breathe. You would figure if anything bad happened in this neighborhood, you're like, fuck, they're in the middle of Detroit. They can call the cops. They can do this. They can get in their car and just get the fuck out of there. But they flip it, and it's like, even though this movie is taking place in a safe place, it's not safe whatsoever. It's really great. I'll talk about the characters really quick. Like I said, there's three main hood characters. The lead character, played by Jane Levy, I believe is her name. Rocky, her douchebag, thuggy boyfriend that you're supposed to hate in the first scene, and you do. I think his name was Money. And of course the token best friend that's really in love with the chick, and you've seen it before in horror movies. What was his name? Alex. He's the good kid, he's the good character. And of course the character, the blind man, played by Stephen Lang. Stephen Lang, most people remember him as the badass military dude in Avatar. I remember him from Michael Mann's great flick from the 80s, Manhunter. He played the journalist that gets tied to the chair and lit on fire and pushed down. It's awesome. Right now he's the dude. He's really wants to play Cable in the next Deadpool movie, which he would be a good cast. I see that. I'm personally pulling for Ron Perlman just because I fucking love Ron Perlman. That guy needs to be in more movies. I know he's in a lot of movies, but I want him in more. But Stephen Lang's cool. He's a good actor, and a lot of this film rests on his shoulders to make it work. You probably, if you've seen trailers for the movie, they go in to break into the house. Obviously, shit goes, downhill, and basically he traps them in the house. They can't get out of the house, and he's basically hunting them in his own house. The bad guy kind of takes on the animalistic, predatory nature in his own home. It's like his home is the battleground, so he's instantly got, one thing in his favor, but he's blind. So that's really cool. It was a cool idea, and it was executed very well. The film never got boring, never got stagnant. There were long points where a person could say not much is happening, but you're constantly unnerved during this time because the director is just mounting up the tension until pop, something happens. And the director does that very well. If you've seen The Evil Dead, the guy knows how to do a scare, and now he's working with more tension, it's suspense versus the visuals in a horror setting, and he's knocked it out of the park in both cases, which is really cool. I love it when you have horror filmmakers that they're basically not one-trick ponies. They're not like the guy who makes Paranormal Activity. That's pretty much all that homeboy can do. He can do it well, but that's pretty much all he can do. Fede Alvarez here is establishing, it's like, dude, I can please the gore hounds out there. I can give them what they want, but if they want more of a homespun, bit slower paced, more intimate type thriller aspect to their horror, I can do that. Like I said earlier, homeboy is channeling his inner Alfred Hitchcock. He even does the classic Vertigo shot. And if I say that to the movie geeks, you know what I'm talking about, from the classic Alfred Hitchcock, where, you know, you're zooming in and pulling back at the same time, kind of gives you that uneasy, you know, feeling. The Vertigo shot. He does that. He does it more than once. Personally, I didn't think it was needed more than once, but who am I? You know, he made it look cool, and it worked. Like, there's the first time he uses the technique in the film, I was like, that is fucking cool. Dude, right on. I think he did it 2 or 3 more times. By the end, I'm like, okay, we all love Alfred Hitchcock, we got it. But, you know, that's just me. But like I said, he channeled his inner Alfred Hitchcock, and me being an Alfred Hitchcock film geek as well, I totally get it, you know. There's a reason Alfred Hitchcock is known as the master of suspense. He fucking earned that title. A lot of filmmakers go to the school of, you know, Hitchcock. Not just what he did in pre-production on films, but just in general, how he shot and made you feel a certain way, how he could, like, really get under your skin and unnerve you. Fede Alvarez has taken that aspect and put it in Don't Breathe. And he did it very well. It's a really cool movie. One aspects I had a little bit of a problem with Don't Breathe, and this is just a small complaint. I mean, who am I? But it's just small. But I didn't have a character that I was necessarily rooting for in the film. Like, I know that's not necessarily important to film in general, to, you know, that you always need somebody to root for. I'm not saying that at all. But with horror movies, you kind of do. In a lot of them, you need to have one character that you want to survive. Otherwise, what's the fucking point? And these 3 characters that are breaking into the old blind man's house, there's a scene near the beginning of the movie where they show the lead character, Rocky, in her home life, and her home life's fucking terrible. She has the typical, like, white trash, trailer trash mother with a shitty boyfriend that's sitting watching daytime TV, basically calling her daughter a whore during sequences. And the lead character has a younger sister, and, you know, the younger sister's around all this, and the mother's just horrible. And the older sister, the lead character, Rocky, is very sweet to her younger sister. And basically what's feeding into them ripping off this old man is, like I said, he has a lot of money. He's sitting on a lot of money, but she wants to use this money and take her little sister and basically get the fuck out of town, get away from the mother, basically start a new life. And I understood that, like, okay, this is the person I'm supposed to root for. But there are things she does throughout the film that really just bothered me. And about a third of the way through the film, I started feeling sorry for the bad guy, the blind man. And thinking, I'm like, this chick and these guys, these 2 dudes deserve what they get. I feel sorry for the blind man. He's, you know, basically he got this money from a huge settlement because his daughter got run over and killed by this rich fuck. And the blind man gets this huge settlement. So you already kind of feel sorry for him. He's living by himself in a shitty Detroit neighborhood. He lost his daughter. So I started really feeling sorry for him. Until later in the film, I won't spoil that, But basically they show something about his character. I'll just say it's the part that involves a turkey baster. And then I'm like, okay, fuck this guy. He's... yeah. But there's something about the Rocky character. I know I'm supposed to be rooting for this girl to survive. I know I am. But I honestly just wasn't too much. I hate to sound terrible like that, but I wasn't, and I'll tell you why. Out of the two other characters, the two other male characters, there's the asshole named Money. He's the thuggy guy I was talking about, just all-around piece of shit. You're supposed to hate him the first time you see him, and trust me, you do. And of course she's with him, that's her boyfriend, and he's a piece of shit, but of course she loves him. And the other character of Alex, who's the friend, of course we're supposed to be rooting for. You know, he's the character where everybody in the audience is supposed to be like, why doesn't the lead character just see how much he loves her and they'll be together and blah, 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 blah. You've seen it a million times in horror movies, and it's here. And, but right at the beginning, I'll say this, spoiler, the first person to get taken out, like right at the beginning of the movie, of course, is the asshole boyfriend, the Money character. So he's gone. And later in the film, spoilers, there's a sequence where basically they have an opportunity, Rocky and Alex at this point, the lead character and the friend zone character, they have an opportunity to get the hell out of Dodge, so to speak. And the first word, at this point they hadn't got the money, but there is an opportunity, like Money has been killed right in front of them. They know they gotta get the hell out of this house. There's an opportunity that presents itself to get out of the house. The first fucking words out of her mouth are, but what about the money? Little side note to that line. Earlier in the film, the character of Alex, the good guy, he actually gets out of the house, but he comes back in for her. So this guy could have made it out and could have been fine. But no, because of his feelings towards her, which, okay, in the story I get, I understand, I get why he did that for the purpose of telling a story in a movie. I get it. But at the same time, her first words out of her, this guy came back to save you and he can get you out, and all you give a shit about is the money. And once again, I get that the money represents a new start, a way to get away from, this terrible person. But let's be honest, I felt cheated with her. I didn't really root for her much. I know it sounds terrible, but that's about my only criticism, is I had no real character to root for. And that's fine. I can dig stuff, movies about quote-unquote bad people. I'm a huge It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia fan, and that shows essentially the misadventures of 5 of the worst human beings on, Earth. They're just terrible, but they're so fucking funny and entertaining. So that's why I watch. And this film was so well written and well shot that even though I didn't have a character to, kind of gravitate towards, especially near the end of the film, it didn't diminish how much I dug the film. Because let's be honest, it's a horror film. Usually bad things happen in horror films to bad people, and that's a lot of what happens in this film. Sorry that I keep looking down once again. It's chicken scratch, but so all around, it's a cool film. The ending definitely kind of had that tacked on, like, ooh, if this is popular, maybe we can bridge it off into a sequel, kind of a tongue-in-cheek wink at the end, where it's like the film's wrapped up in itself. It's, beginning, middle, end, and it works that way. But they definitely have those little breadcrumbs in the last scene, like, this might not be over. So, because it made money, maybe we'll get another one. I honestly would prefer a sequel to the Evil Dead remake versus a sequel to Don't Breathe, just because I think Don't Breathe is one of those films that it's kind of lightning in a bottle. Like, it works once. If we try to string this out, it's just gonna get just worse and worse and worse as the sequels progress. So every once in a while, I know, the film series that have the most sequels, especially in the 80s, were the horror films. Not every horror film needs a sequel. Sometimes we just need to leave it alone and enjoy it for what it is. So I haven't decided if how I'm going to do a rating yet on films. Like some people like, ooh, I almost said the thumbs up thing. I might get sued for that. Or stars or whatever. So we'll start off with stars. Let's say 5 stars is great and 0 stars, yeah, you get it. Initially, I gave this film 3.5 stars, but because me being just a horror junkie, I love horror films so much that I even gave it another half star because one thing that's really cool, I was talking to somebody about it the other day at class, is we're kind of living in this area where it's like the renaissance of horror films. And by saying that, I mean usually horror films respond with audiences. Audiences respond to horror films. Critics usually do not. Of course there's the classic that will come out every once in a while, like The Exorcist, and the critics and the audiences are both in agreement that, a horror film kicks ass. More times than not, it's the audiences that, gravitate towards the horror movies, and critics usually just shit all over them. Right now, I can think of, a handful of horror films that are responding with audiences like they typically always do, but the critics too. The critics are just losing their shit as well. Critics love Don't Breathe. Another example I can think of modern films like that is earlier this year, The Witch, which is still like one of my favorite movies of the year. It's just really well done. And It Follows, another one. It's these movies that audiences are digging because horror audiences, we love horror films. We support them. We go out and see them. But the critics, for once, are in total agreement. Like, yes, these kick ass. So, me being a horror fanatic, like I said, I kind of bumped it up. And I'll say I gave Don't Breathe 4 out of 5 stars, if that helps you. So basically, go see it. It's a really good film. The Feed, and I'm sorry if I'm saying the director's name wrong. Sorry. Fede Alvarez, the director. He's only made 2 films, like I said before, but both of them are great. They're both great genre films, and they're both different enough and alike enough where you can tell this guy isn't a one-hit wonder. Like, this is a director to keep an eye on. Who knows if he's going to continue to stay in the horror genre? I hope he does. But I understand why horror directors every once in a while are like, you know what, I want to branch out. I'm not all about the doom and gloom. I want to make something else. But we just lost Wes Craven recently. We need some new horror directors to kind of, John Carpenter doesn't make movies anymore. He just makes music, which is cool, but I miss John Carpenter films. So we need new horror directors to really, get us back in the seats, so to speak. But I'll always be there. But sorry to start rambling. Don't Breathe. Awesome movie. Go see it. Get out there, see it on a big screen. Go out and see movies the way they're supposed to be seen. You're not supposed to be watching a movie on your fucking phone. You're supposed to be on a big screen. Or watching a big screen. Not on the big screen. That would be weird if you were on the big screen and watching the big screen. That'd be weird. But go out and see the movie. Thank you for watching. And once again, this is Deviant D for Lightstand Entertainment. Do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, that like button. I'll be your friend.